What's up, Facebook? Happy freaking Thursday. Last week, I told you I was moving away from my computer because I was doing more of a mindset call. But today, I like this background. I got the sign, I upgraded my lens, and this is almost the same setup we use for our podcast, but we got a second camera and stuff. So it's a little bit different. But I'm going to be talking to you guys about probably at least three recovery tips on how to freaking put on a ton of muscle since we are in winter. And in Arizona, I don't know if you know, winter is like done mid-February. It really probably doesn't start warming up like hot till April. But I feel like February, March, I know a lot of you guys are East Coast, a lot of our clients are East Coast, and it's still cold, like really, really cold January, February, whatever. So I'm lucky. And I know I'm wearing a jacket. I'm just going to show you guys. It's hard to see, but it's a Pursuit jacket. So I made it a couple weeks ago and I love it and I wear it all the time. So here's a couple things I want you guys to think about before I dive in, because I think this will help put the episode into perspective for you. Or not episode, it's not my podcast, this training. Number one, do you want to put on muscle? Now, this is a funny thing because I ask a lot of females and they go, no, because they're so afraid they're going to get big and bulky, right? If you're a girl and you say, I want to get toned, I don't want to be like big, but I want to be like lean and athletic and sexy. If that's you, you actually do need to put on muscle. You just don't know it. Um, I know you might be like, well, I'm like big. I want to get smaller. Well, here's the thing. Putting on muscle, number one, I promise you won't look bulkier. I promise you. If you do it right. Um, Number two, so this isn't just for females, but just hear me out. This applies to males too. So number one, if you're a female, you need to put on muscle if you want to be lean and toned and sexy. Same things for the guys. They just use a different verbiage. Dude, I don't want to be like huge like a bodybuilder. I just want to be like lean and like, kind of look like athletic, dude, it's the same thing, bro and girl. You have to put on muscle mass. Now, you see the guys that are like big, that's intentionally, like they're eating intentionally to be big. Okay. They're eating intentionally to be jacked. If you see women that are big and bulky, they're eating and training intentionally to be that too. Okay. So this is not, um, this is, this is a very, it's a very intentional thing. For me, I've been lifting for 17 years. I basically have never taken a week off. Like unless I'm sick or I got like even with a severe injury, I can't tell you the last time I've taken a week off, like literally and that long. I'm always in the gym. And my goal hasn't always been to get like as big as possible or as shredded as possible. Like sometimes it is performance based and stuff because I'm an athlete and I teach and coach tactical people. So the functionality matters. I digress though. The whole point is it's very intentional. So you need to put on muscle, and muscle increases metabolism. If you want to say, well, my metabolism is bad because I'm older, my metabolism isn't what it was when I was younger. Yes, you have some hormones that change, your thyroid stimulating hormone. There's a bunch of other stuff, your testosterone, your estrogen. There's a bunch of hormones that can change, but that's going to happen with age anyways. So the only really thing that you can do because I guess you could take TRT and HRT, hormonal replacement therapy and stuff like that. Besides that, I'm not even suggesting that. I'm just saying the only way to actually influence your metabolism really is building muscle. If you know what your BMR is, that's your basal metabolic rate, or your like baseline metabolism. It's basically how many calories you burn at rest if you were to just wake up and like lay in bed, right? Because your brain, your lungs, your heart, your organs, they all function and it burns a certain amount of calories, and muscle is extremely expensive. Okay. Like when I'm sitting here right now and I'm about 175 to 180 pounds and I have somebody else sitting, and you can't see this other chair, but in this other chair, and they're the same weight, right? Because I know you go look at the picture up top of the page or profile. A lot of people that are 175, 180 pounds don't look like me, right? I have a lot more muscle, which means my metabolism's faster. And if we're both doing the same workout, relatively, obviously we could be in different like physical conditioning, muscle endurance, cardio, stuff like that. But I'm going to burn more calories than that individual, probably muscle wise, because I have more muscle fibers contracting, more work being done. And if I break the muscle down, there's more to break down, which means there's more to recover, which means I can eat more. So I promise you, building muscle, if your goal is to get toned, burn body fat, increase your performance, you have to put on muscle. So now that those things are out of the way, I'm going to hit you with these. Number one, you need to eat more protein. Yes, more. I know you feel like you're probably eating enough, but I can tell you right now, when I try to bulk and or just put on any type of muscle, because I know bulk is a huge turnoff word for most ladies or even guys, if you already feel, and bulk just means I'm intentionally putting on muscle mass. Now, I know you see people that do bulks and they get like super fluffy. After a certain amount of years of lifting, that is necessary. Like for me, I have to actually get kind of chubby. I have to lose all my abs and keep them off for like 6 months if I wanted to purposefully, intentionally put on a drastic amount of muscle, which I'm actually kind of in the process of doing right now. I'm doing a slower one because I don't want to get fluffy. I like to look lean. So if it's a slower process, but if you've been training for long enough, like probably 8+ years, you might not be able to do a slow bulk. You might not make any progress. So for this year, I actually have to kind of beef up a little bit and make my clothes tight, and it's okay. But for you, you can actually not have to really worry about that. You should be eating more protein, and a more protein is always going to make you burn more body fat unless you're way overeating in your calories, because protein is an anabolic nutrient or macronutrient, and I promise you, you're probably not overeating protein. That being said, we do have some clients that do overeat on their protein. I have to tell them like, hey, your goal is 180 grams a day. You eating 220 is a little overkill, right? So about 1 to 1.2 grams per pound of lean desired body mass for both men and women. I don't really think it should change that much. Look, there's some literature that says, oh, women need less protein and blah, blah, blah. It's the same muscle. Like a muscle mass on a woman and a muscle mass on a man, there's still muscle, and muscle takes protein. I don't care what sex you are. Now, if the man's bigger, he needs more protein. But what if you have a woman that has more muscle than a man? Should she have less protein? No, it should be relative to lean desired body mass. So for me, okay, I'll give you a really easy, super easy example. For me, I'm 180, like let's say I'm 180 pounds. I want to get to 190. I'm probably going to eat 100, at least 190 grams of protein a day. And that might seem like a lot, but I didn't invent the human body, and I sure as hell didn't invent the rules to exercise science. I just know them, okay? After coaching a lot of people, that's generally, there's people that are not great responders to it, but I will tell you right now that for the vast majority of people, that's a really good rule. So if you're a woman and you're like, well, I'm 170, but I'd like to be 150, and there's no way I'm going to eat 150 grams of protein. Well, you need to eat within 130 and 150. You don't have to, but you're just not going to get results that well. Like like you eating a moderate protein diet is what's hurting you, because you're not satiated, right? Your appetite is not probably that full. If you're overeating, or some women go, well, I can't eat that much. It's too much. You can use protein powder, use literally a cup of water and stir protein in there. There's so many things you could do, right? I front load my protein. So I try to get in as much protein in my breakfast and lunch, so I don't have to get as much as my dinner. Most people eat a lot of protein for dinner, like steak and chicken, and that's fine. The problem with that is people like skimp on protein for breakfast and lunch. Let's just say you eat 3 meals a day, whether you're intermittent fasting or whatever. I'm not going to get into that in this training. They'll eat a couple meals. Okay. So they'll do that. And then they'll basically like, oh, I woke up and had a Greek yogurt and I had some egg whites, and they're like, oh, it's really good. It's 40 grams of protein. Okay, sweet. And then for lunch, they're like, oh, I had a turkey sandwich and that was another 20 grams of protein. And I'm like, oh, sweet. So you're at 60 and you need 150. So protein for dinner, you're going to eat 90 grams. Like, no, right? So there you go. Eat your protein in the morning. That's number one. Number two, which you probably already know, but is sleep. These are the 3 things that I make sure that I have in my sleep. It needs to be cold. I sleep at like 70 degrees with the fan on. I have to. If I'm too hot, I won't sleep, which is part of the reason I don't eat like big meals right before dinner. Like you won't get fatter, but your sleep will get worse. And if your sleep quality is worse, it can lead to more fat gain long-term for a lot of reasons. And I'm not even going to break them down unless you really want to know. And then I'll answer it in the comments. And I already have like podcast episodes on that, which you can listen to. But it needs to be cold around 68 to 70 degrees. You need to just make it work. You'll sleep better. Also, dark. I actually just started sleeping with this sleep mask I ordered on Amazon, and I can drop the link below. I'm not like affiliated with them, but I was using this like cheap ass. Okay, don't laugh at me. We went to this like escape room a year and a half ago for anniversary, and they gave us like this little eye mask thing because you're supposed to be blindfolded. And I literally was using that because I was like, oh, okay, I don't really use it that much. But now that I have a baby and we sleep with this nightlight on, like I need it to be pitch black. I got this new eye mask and it is like so comfortable. It's pitch black. And I actually do sleep way better. Even though my room's already dark, I have blackout curtains. In Arizona, the light tends to just like peek through everything somehow. So the mask is legit. And then another thing that I probably need to be better about is reducing screen time before bed. Your sleep quality is so heavily influenced on, check this out, both fat loss and muscle gain. And if you're sleeping well, you crave less sugar, fat, and salt, which generally are processed stuff and not good for you. You'll be able to curb your hunger and you won't be as sore. I mean, there's a million benefits. And this isn't a sleep episode. I also have like episodes on that. So it's fine. But make sure you are sleeping. I would say, I know a lot of your first responders don't sleep very well. I know you have like night shifts and all that. You need to get 7 hours, non-negotiable. I don't care. You need to make it work 7 hours. And look, we have a lot of first responders that are like, well, if I go to the gym on the day that I work, blah, blah. Dude, if you're working 312s, don't even train on those days. Like you can go on a walk, but if it means that you're waking up so early that you got to get 5 hours of sleep, don't do it. It's going to just put you in the drain. Okay. Just train really hard the other 4 days you have off. Like 4 days a week, 4-day splits, fine. We have so many nurses and EMTs and stuff that do that. They just don't, I mean, they try to get their steps in, and most of you are really active. So they're pretty active on their days off, or sorry, the days they work. And that, so they're getting their steps in and getting movement. And the days off, you do your strength training, right? And you have as much time as you want to do it. And then I would say the third thing is making sure that you're on a progressive overload program that deals with pretty high volume hypertrophy. I'll break this down. Progressive overload means your goal is to be doing more tension, more time under tension, more volume, like basically make the workout harder, add 5 pounds to the rep, up the sets, up the reps. And I can't really go into it on this episode about like what that looks like. It doesn't need to be overcomplicated, but it does need to progress every phase. For a lot of our clients, we change every 4 to 6 weeks. So we want to make sure that it is a progression, and that can become complicated because you have to do some evaluations. Like, am I making progress? Am I getting stronger? You have to look at your numbers and metrics. And I will tell you 99.99% of people in the gym are not actually following a training program. Do you know how I know? Sorry, I got to pop my ears. Because I go in the gym and I look and people are just doing stuff. They're not writing down anything. They're not tracking data. And I know these people are not going home and entering their numbers and everything in a spreadsheet. Okay. So unless you're entering it in an app, which I do every training session, or you write it down, which is a pain in the ass. I used to do it. You're not actually training well because you're going to miss points. You don't know like when to go up on weight. You would go, oh, remember from last time. Well, yeah, the only way you're going to remember from last time is if you do the same workouts over and over and over again. And that's not progressive overload. You can't just do the same workouts you're doing from high school, which you'd be surprised. I talked to a lot of men and they go, yeah, I graduated like 8 years ago and I'm still doing the same ones I learned from high school. I'm like, no wonder you're not making progress, and they're not consistent. Okay. So you need to do that. And then high volume hypertrophy. Hypertrophy is usually anywhere from 3 to 5 sets, 8 to 12 reps, right? So anything within that, 5 sets of 10, 4 sets of 12, 4 sets of 10, 3 sets of you could probably go to 15, 3 sets of 12, 3 sets of 8, 4 sets of 8, I mean, like anything within that range. And yes, it matters and there's variations, but depending on like how many sets, like I'm doing a really high volume, like 6 sets right now on my training split, where don't do this, by the way. I do 16, 12, 10, 10, 8, 8, 68 reps. It's a lot. It's 6 sets and it's brutal. Don't do that. It's too much volume for you. But even for me, it's a lot. But I also know that I'm breaking down the muscle quite a bit, which actually is kind of the next thing. You need to break down the muscle enough to get it to grow. I think a lot of people go in and not that you need that much volume, but they're like, oh, I'll just do like a couple sets. Yes, you can break down your muscle, but the problem is sometimes people don't pick enough heavy weight and they're not pushing hard enough. So the repeated effort is almost better. Like I'd rather see somebody do 5 sets at 10 than 3 sets at 12. And then only because like I feel like the first 3 sets the first set you kind of push yourself, figuring out the weight. It's kind of like you warm up set. And then like your other set, you're like kind of push yourself, maybe go to failure. And your last one, you're at failure. But then if you have a couple sets on top of that, you're definitely going to failure. You're definitely breaking down the muscle because the whole part of training is to break down the muscle fiber to literally tear it, create micro tears. And then when you eat protein and you rest, right, which is the first 2 things I said, then your body's like, oh, we're going to go to work and we're going to repair these broken down muscle fibers. But your muscle only knows tension, right? Tension like a rubber band. Okay. So if you took a rubber band and you kept doing this, you would actually see like almost like it's giving away little micro tears. That's how kind of a muscle fiber is. And so you want to create these tears because once you sleep and you eat protein and carbs and fats, because you do need all 3 to build muscle, by the way, it's not just protein. Just most people are low on their protein. You recover. What do you know? And the way that you get bigger is you just keep doing it over and over and over again. And my last tip would be this. I tried to do lots of bulks before, and I either didn't do it long enough. I say bulks, putting on muscle. I'm sorry, because I know that's probably a turnoff for some of you. I tried to put on muscle before, and I think one thing is I try to stay too lean while I did it. Like you can, it's just very minuscule. Like you need to just be okay with eating a little bit more clean food. That's not your permission to go eat whatever you want. Doesn't mean you can't have some good food and junk food and go on date nights and have a pizza and beer. You could do that. I do, but within moderation. And then the second thing would be like sleep extra, which is really hard. I know it's probably the hardest thing with somebody that's a busy life or your specific job. But if you can sleep extra, like as much as you can sleep, you will put on more muscle and actually training not as frequent. I have a bad habit of I like to train 4 to 6 days a week for my mental health. And that's really not optimal for growth. So I made actually this program that I'm doing right now, and I'm realizing that it's just too much volume to grow. I am becoming less mobile. I felt like I was actually growing more when I did 3 days a week, but I will go insane if I only train 3 days a week. So I'm making it a 4-day-a-week split. It's a perfect split for me. And I'm still doing stuff the other 2 days, but it's relatively light. It's mostly focused on cardio and mobility. And the cardio is not a lot of like muscular focus. So I'm not going to do like the rower, which is a lot of legs, or cycling, which is a lot of legs. I might do like some intervals on it, but mostly like walking incline on a treadmill, some like getting a lot of steps in, stuff like that. So make sure you're not training too frequent. And I know this is a lot of information. If you have questions, drop them in the comments below. I'll get to them. But again, if you're trying to put on muscle, which you should, I highly suggest almost all of our clients do some type of bulk, right? Where they're trying to put on lean muscle during the holiday time. Don't fight it. You're going to be eating extra anyways. Most people do. So just enjoy the time. The only caveat is if you're going to do that, you have to make sure you're training a lot, because just eating more and training the same, you're just going to get fat. Okay. Like, you have to train a little bit more. And I know that might seem contradictory. More volume, less days, right? More total volume on the days you lift, less days, more sleep, more protein. And honestly, I hope this group is helpful. I hope these trainings are helpful. I know sometimes they're at my computer, sometimes they're here, but literally every Thursday at 3:45 Arizona, by the way, at this time zone, that would be 4:45 p.m. CST and 5:45 p.m. EST. We do them every Thursday. Okay. Every single Thursday, I'm here doing some lives for you guys because I love you. I hope these are helpful. Also, if you scroll to the very top of this page, there's a pinned post with our transformations and some guides. Okay. If you go to the guide section, there's a metabolism guide. I believe there's a meal plan guide. There's a supplement guide. Please use those. Put a lot of time and effort into making those and giving you guys even to the ultimate metabolism guide. It's kind of a beast. It's like 50 something pages. But if you go towards the bottom, there's some legit nutrition stuff. It's the same advice that my active clients get. It's the same guide and they know it because they're getting one-on-one coaching. So they don't really need the guide, right? But it's the guide and there's actually sample workouts in there. And these are actually hypertrophy workouts. It's like it's 1 week. It's like 4 days or 5 days in the gym. I forget. And there's video demonstrations and it tells you how many sets and how many reps and everything. Uh, Really useful. It's the same videos that are actually in our app, I believe. So it's obviously don't come with the app and the ease and tracking all your stuff, but like I created that literally for free for you guys. So if you're like, well, I don't know like a hypertrophy, well, go do that and execute it. And here's the thing. If you have the guide and you have it and it's laid out and you don't go do it, your problem isn't actually knowledge. Cause I think most people are like, well, I just don't know what to do in the gym. You know, I think most people kind of know. If you don't, it's fine. But I think it's actually more of a plan of implementation and execution than it is knowledge, dude. The internet is out there. I'm not the only fitness influencer. There's a million, and they're all preaching, all the good ones are preaching relatively the same thing. So why aren't you in shape? Well, I can tell you uh it's a practical implementation. Like there's the knowledge out there for me to be a millionaire or a billionaire. Why am I not? I haven't implemented the things that are going to make me that wealthy consistently. So I promise you, if you could take anything away from these trainings, is like I hope I'm hitting you with knowledge because that's what they are. But it's nothing if you cannot implement them consistently. Just like all knowledge, knowledge is nothing if you don't use it. So if you really struggle with using it, let's have a chat. Maybe you need a coach. Maybe you need an actual program. If not, keep tuning into these. They're free. Use this group, whatever. But I see a lot of people that want to be cheap. Let's just say how it is. They want to ride off of free information forever because they don't want to spend it, but they also don't do anything. Like if you use all this and you actually are consistent with it, don't ever purchase any fitness thing from anybody. Like, dude, crush it free. But the reality is 99.9999% of people don't. Um, I hope you are, but even on all these trainings, I want you to take one nugget from this. You don't need to take everything. Right? I have a podcast with almost 100 episodes. I hope somebody scrolls through them. Again, I'll drop it in the link below. But I hope people scroll through them and they're like, "Oh, this is helpful," and they listen to the episode. Even when I listen to podcast episodes, I don't remember the whole freaking episode. I remember like one or two things, but over time, that's super valuable. So I appreciate it, guys. I love you, and we